Ghostbusters. And we're back in. Who knew? Dude, I was so sick. I can't even tell you. For me to miss a show last week, I was in bed. I was hallucinating. I was having other people's lives flash in front of my eyes. Whatever I got in Dallas on the plane kicked my ass on Thanksgiving Day. And then I'm just barely getting over it now on freaking prednisone and Z-Packs and everything ever invented other than injections and vaccines. Yeah, what's up? Yeah. Lucky to be alive, bro. Hey, how's it all going? Sorry we missed last week. I just couldn't freaking do it. It was just too much. I was too out of it. But you could even hear I'm on prednisone now, which is a steroid to drive out the cough, which has worked in the past. So that being said, we have a really, really, really big show today on a real iconic American comedy icon named Bill Murray, which I've been meaning to get to. We'll do This Week in Showbiz History next week. I'll be on the road in Florida, and then we'll do Chevy Chase. They kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly, or depending on how you look at it, oil and water. And we'll discuss my my encounters with it. I've had it for 2 weeks. Yeah, everybody's saying 4 weeks. It's 2 weeks now from me. Yeah, it's not COVID related, but I mean, it is just a hacking cough that I'm taking, medication for. But yeah, I never had a fever. I didn't have a sore throat. I didn't have a temperature. Just a freaking cough. And if they don't start cleaning these planes in between flights, I think they're going to kill off half of the United States. I mean, what is so difficult? Just clean the plane like they used to. It takes about 20 minutes. I mean, they literally throw these people off a plane and then you get on there. But we'll get into Bill Murray in a second. I just want to talk about our sponsors for 2 minutes who have been extremely loyal to us. And the first one is Biltong, which is whoa, let me show you here. Hold on. I just got a new Biltong thing. I don't even know what this is, so I'm going to put this up here. Maybe you people know what it is. It's cabanossi. It's a new flavor of Biltong, which I have yet to open yet, but I will get into it. It seems kind of stringy from what I'm feeling in the bag here. This is my ASMR moment. And then my old favorite is Angus, which is my favorite flavor of Biltong. So you could support this company down in Texas with their homeschooled children and their newly arrived American status from South Africa, where they fled on foot, on boat, by blimp. They took a helicopter and a speedboat, transferred to the cruise ship, set up a shop in Prairie, Texas, wherever the hell that is. Texas is a big state. I haven't been through every single aspect of it in my life, but they are righteous people. And this guy, Anton, stepped up to me from day one to support the show. So we can show some love going back the other way. Use the secret code to get the 10% off. It comes in a box with ice, with these packs. You could use them for camping, which is what I save them for. And you will love this, especially as we get into the playoffs. I'm a Packer fan, so we're getting in. Dude, watching Aaron Rodgers on the Steelers. The Steelers are like my second favorite team. But to see him as a Jet was surreal. But to see him as a Steeler, I don't mind watching that at all. I watched that game the other day against the Ravens, and I was totally into it because of Aaron Rodgers. He's not the young Aaron Rodgers, but still has a lot of football smarts and ability. Very entertaining to see him. Big fan. Okay, so there's the Biltong. Use the secret code 10% off to get that, and try this new flavor. I don't even know what they're called, flavors. A flavor doesn't sound like a real thing, but this new type of Biltong, cabanossi. I'm going to try it myself and report back to you on Wednesday. Okay, so Anton's got 2 new products, which I want to share with you right now, because I've been begging him to give me something sweet, and he has delivered. Now, these 2 here, the one on the right is empty. The one on the left, I haven't started yet because I'm more of a vanilla guy than a chocolate guy. But these cookies is not the right word. They're more like cookie biscuits. Apparently, white chocolate, chocolate oat biscuits. It seems to have a hint of coconut, at least in the vanilla one. They are absolutely delicious. They're crunchy. They're not soft. It's more like a cookie biscuit. Apparently, this is like, I hate to say it, but this is the Oreo of South Africa. Not to make a pun, but this is like their number one cookie. Anton was telling me about when growing up. And holy cow. I mean, he sent me this a couple of weeks ago and I devoured one. I'm working on box 2, the chocolate one. You may want to try this for the holidays. You will not be disappointed. It comes in a completely sealed metallic inner package for freshness. Absolutely delicious. They're about this big. They're not gigantic, but they're quite a few in the bag. Gourmet all the way. Here's the backside of this box, which you can read about, on your own. It's on the website. It's the same website for Biltong USA. It's in there somewhere, and you get the 10% off to try it with the secret code of Mark G, which allows them to track where their orders are coming from. I think you'll love it. I'm addicted to it already. The coffee is the coffee. I think the coffee market's kind of flooded. I'm still drinking the coffee, but he wants to focus on these cookies and the Biltong, which I'm more than happy to do because I'm completely addicted to the Biltong and now the cookies. So try that at home. And while you're trying that, you might think about subscribing to the show. I know it's a big ask, but we're getting close. I'd like to get to 10,000 subscribers, which is an enormous amount of subscribers in such a short period of time that we've been doing this. But what can I say? We're getting close to 10,000. If you haven't subscribed, it would put us into like an incredibly high bracket so far with such a short run for the show, just starting this fall. Maybe we can get to 100,000 by the summer. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. And I don't really care anymore. I'm just going to focus on my shit and deal with my shit and let the big dogs deal with corporate headquarters because I don't have the time or the patience to deal with it. I'm just going to focus on the show. And I'm glad to see everybody here. I'm glad. Cookie biscuit. Well, it's a biscuit and a cookie. Yeah, I don't know. It's not. They're not called cookies. They're called some kind of biscuits. I'm addicted to vanilla. I've always been a vanilla guy. Always loved vanilla Cokes, vanilla soda, vanilla ice cream, everything vanilla. I mean, I'll eat chocolate. I'm not like, but I'm not like a chocolate addict. If I had a choice between a vanilla cake and a chocolate cake, I'd go vanilla cake all day long. Oh yeah, this is my Groundhog Day shirt. This is I don't know if I could show you this, but it's Happy Groundhog Day in commemoration of the Bill Murray episode that we're doing now. This is, part of the swag for Groundhog Day. But let's subscribe to the channel. You can like it down below. You can hit the notification button. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There's the alert. You could do it now. Pew Pew knows how to do it. Nadine out of New York, she knows how to do it. A lot of you, Mike Schaefer, I'm sure he knows how to do it. He's been around for a while. A lot of you people know how to do it. You just get lazy, you get fat, you sit around, you forget to subscribe, you forget to tell your relatives. Pretty soon you're living in a nursing home with nobody visiting you. I don't know how Chuck Barris got involved in this thing, but nevertheless, as no have you gone, Phil is still lined up. Not sure what that means, but don't quit smoking weed. Anyway. Yes, I'm Peter Venkman, and well, Venkman was not supposed to be Bill Murray, as we now know. It was supposed to be John Belushi, but we'll get into that in the show. Thanks, Lucy Wallace of the Wallace Center in Beverly Hills. Okay, let's get into Bill Murray because there's a lot of stuff on Bill Murray, and I don't have time to jibber jabber about these other things. So we got to get into Bill Murray. So Bill Murray, 1950, September 21st, born in Evanston, Illinois. They moved to Wilmette pretty soon. But he's born in Evanston, Illinois. And it's interesting because he's born right in the heart of the baby boomer 60s. In other words, 1965, he'll be like 15 years of age. In 1967, he'll be 17. So he is right in the belly of the beast. But he's far from... I'll get into this in a little while. He's far from being a hippie. The hippie side comes from, oh, that's a weird one. Look at this little, he's kind of like a little punk. And he acts like a punk, and he was a punk. This guy was not a hippie like Harold Ramis truly was. His father, parents were Lucille, who was a mailroom clerk, really beautiful, really gregarious, really funny, according to all the Murrays. John Murray, I know fairly well. The other Murray, the only one I really knew was John Murray, drinking as a drinking partner. Edward on the right is a lumber salesman, and they have 9 kids. She has multiple miscarriages. One daughter has polio. That's the daughter who becomes a nun, and an interesting nun at that. Um, she she becomes a nun in Michigan and tours doing one-woman shows of women saints who were nuns, a couple of them. So she's kind of a performing nun, interestingly enough. There's the mother in the middle, and there's various photos that we have of the family. We could show a picture of the house that Bill grew up in. I don't know if you have that. But Bill's there's the house. Yeah. So you pack in 9 kids and 2 bathrooms into that home, and 2 parents, and you've got some chaos. So he's got look at all these kids. There's the 2 sisters. There's Billy up in the right-hand corner. I think that's Ed down in the bottom right. Nancy is up there on the left. Edward, Billy, Joel, Lauren, Johnny, Brian on the bottom right. I think Ed was the oldest, and then Brian, and then Billy. And then obviously these 2 sisters are in there. God knows what was going on. But one of the mother had several miscarriages, and in 1967, there she is right there, the mother. Bill says his father was really difficult to get to laugh. The father, I don't even know how to describe this, but the dad was more of a practical joker. He had cufflinks on his hands right there, which you can't see the cuffs. He had cufflinks that were pistols that actually shot blanks. Go figure. There's a beautiful picture of these 2. They were kind of, Johnny come lately party people who were madly in love with each other, and living a pretty good life despite all these kids and everything else. They, were totally in love. Bill Murray talks about at age 12. Bill Murray talks about the fact that he had girlfriends since he was in kindergarten. Here's Bill at his high school prom. And we're going to get into that in a second, because you could see that he's got this impish quality to him right out of the get-go. In his teen years, he works as a golf caddy. But yeah, there's a little younger Bill. He works as a golf caddy, which supplies a lot of the information because his brother did too. They worked at a golf course that was really snooty. In fact, he talked about one guy they caddied for who was blind, and they would tell him he had holes in one, and the club would give him these plaques, and after 2 or 3 of these hole-in-one plaques, the golf course got wind that the Murray brothers were effing with them and told him to knock it off. The blind guy wasn't getting holes in one. But as his upbringing educationally, Murray read the books about biographies of Kit Carson, Davy Crockett, and Wild Bill Hickok. Hence, the violence of Bill Murray is, and I will get into the violence of Bill Murray, comes from Kit Carson, Davy Crockett, and Wild Bill Hickok. He forms a rock and roll cover band called the Dutch Masters. He's dedicated to baseball. Golf is a thing that they are caddying to make money. But baseball is his life. He's a Cub, and I got a tip of the hat to him. He has a first child, a boy. He names the boy Homer. And then his middle name is Banks, like Ernie Banks, his hero. So you got any man who does that has a piece of my heart in there. A man who loves the game as much as Bill Murray does. But that being said, he goes to a school, a private Jesuit high school called Loyola, which of 64 to 68 and he gets involved with the Music Man. He gets involved with some theater pieces there at Loyola, but the priests are quite physical with him, punching. He described it as they would come up to you and punch you in the stomach and knock the wind out of you. Not this nun ruler stuff that you hear in like the Blues Brothers. What Murray described was sheer violence on the part of the priests, and it was not responsive. It was more before the events even happened. Just to keep you on track, they would hit you in the head, they would punch you in the stomach. Amazing stuff, just amazing stuff. And the point of the matter is, in 1967, Bill is 17 and his father dies of diabetic-related illness at the age of only 46. And this puts the entire family into a tailspin because she's got 9 kids and no breadwinner. And she's got to really crank out the work. But the point of the matter is, Murray has to pay for school at Loyola. There's the dad getting ready to carve up the turkey. Murray has to pay for his own school at Loyola because it's a private Jesuit school. And he uses his golf caddying money to actually pay the tuition on his own to go to high school. I mean, think about that. And then he has a situation where, again, he needs money. And I mean, they really do need money. He's doing everything he can. He's selling chestnuts on the street. But on his 20th birthday, he starts to go to a school in Regis College. I never heard of this place, Regis University, which is in Denver, Colorado. I'm not sure if it's still there. But he goes to this school and he enrolls in pre-med. He wants to be a doctor. But he quickly realizes it's way, way too hard to be a doctor, even in pre-med, even in a place called Regis University, even in Denver, Colorado. But whatever the thing is, money becomes a real issue for him and the family. He's at O'Hare Airport. I think it was his birthday. It was in 1970. So he's 20 years old. It was just like his 20th birthday, and he's getting on a plane with a suitcase. And he tells someone jokingly with that dry sense of humor that he's got a bomb in his suitcase. And the other passenger notified the authorities. In 1970, there were a lot of skyjackings and stuff, but I could see Bill Murray doing that. My stupid brother did that when my parents and him were going to Israel, and it didn't end well. Let me just put it that way. He made another joke. Maybe he got it from Bill Murray. I don't know. But Bill Murray makes a joke that he's got a bomb in his suitcase. Yeah, deadpan Dan. And they take him into this room, and what's in the suitcase? 10 pounds of Colombian marijuana. Bill Murray had become a major, major drug dealer. He was flying the drugs back to the college, Regis University. He was not dabbling. This was not something that it was 2 joints. He had literally 10.5 pounds of marijuana, pure gold, Colombian gold, in his suitcase. And he was arrested. It was the front page of the Chicago Tribune. He's not a celebrity. It's a front page story in the Chicago papers. He has to go to trial. He's facing 20 years in prison. And because it was a first offense, he is given 5 years probation, which is unbelievable for the quantity that he had for sale. He was a major drug dealer. He admitted he was a drug dealer. And that was the life he chose at that time. So because of the 5-year probation, not too bright. I did the same thing, but I didn't get on a plane with, I was a drug dealer too in college, but I didn't get on a plane with 10 pounds of weed. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But nevertheless, he has to drop out of college. And because he drops out of college, he doesn't know what to do with himself. So he somehow, because of his brother, stumbles into a second city. He was actually outside selling chestnuts. 10 pounds. I swear to God, you can look it up. It's front page of the paper. It's front page of the Chicago Tribune. This is not a small story, and he was nobody. This is, pre-celebrity Bill Murray. 1973, he joins Second City, and he's never done this before, but Brian is already in there. So Brian kind of opens the door for him to become part of Second City. And he does a bit called Issues and Alibis, which was a parody of like a CNN current affairs show. And he develops an early version of Nick the Lounge Singer there around that time. And he really has a good time doing this and realizes that this is his calling. And he stays there a couple of years. And just keep in mind, this is in Chicago. John Candy shows up at one point with Dan Aykroyd. So there's various people there. Here's a photo. This is a very rare photo of Candy with Bill Murray at Second City in Chicago. Very interesting photo. He will go up to Toronto, but he's basically based in Chicago, Murray, which is the main headquarters of Second City with Del Close, the leader there of that group. In 1973, here, that's Murray at Second City. Yeah, he had the mustache and the long hair, the mustachioed Bill. I wanted to get into the early Murray career because nobody ever does. And I know a lot about it because of Lampoon and what's going to happen now. But in 1973, he leaves Second City and he comes to be part of the National Lampoon Radio Hour. And the National Lampoon Radio Hour is a precursor to Lemmings, which was a precursor to SNL. And it's a mixture of various people coming out of Chicago. And there's his brother who gets him into the scene at Lampoon. Now, Bill Murray running around the halls of Lampoon, the magazine where I worked with Legendary. At one point, he goes into Maddie's office, my boss, and starts screaming at him that $1.75 in some tax was taken out of his paycheck. So Maddie just takes $2 out of his wallet and goes, "Leave me alone," and throws $2 at him. Fanatically aggressive about getting paid, fanatically aggressive. He the first day in New York, he spends it on the streets with Layla Nabulsi. Layla will later work for SNL. She will later work for Hunter S. Thompson. She will later, after Thompson died, she asked me to do a part of a documentary tribute of reading here in LA to Hunter Thompson, which I did for her here at a bookstore in Los Feliz that was made into a documentary. I kind of did his Super Bowl stuff, going the other way. I did some of his sports stuff, but that's a story for another day. Yeah, Brian gets him in there. John Belushi is in there. Belushi shows up from Chicago. There's another renegade, Bill Murray, crazy person. Yeah, he was like running through the halls of Lampoon, but he was on the street with Layla Nabulsi and just going up to people on the streets of Manhattan and grabbing them, putting his hands over their eyes, taking their cigarettes. And he's nobody. He's not a celebrity yet. Okay, this is how he gets in. This is kind of interesting because Brian Doyle Murray falls in love with Gilda Radner, and Radner is not reciprocating the love. And Brian Doyle Murray says, "I can't stay here any longer." And he brings in his brother and he goes back to Second City, Brian Doyle Murray, and he's basically replaced by Bill Murray. Now, Layla Nabulsi is dating Christopher Guest, but that doesn't stop Bill Murray. So Bill Murray goes after her hook, line, and sinker, and they become super competitive. Him and Christopher Guest, two of the most talented improvisers. At one point, as I recall, Sean Kelly, who was an editor at Lampoon, simply brought them into the studio. We had a studio on the floor at Lampoon at 635 Madison Avenue. We had a studio in there, complete professional recording studio. And that's where they made the albums. That's where they recorded the radio show. And then it went out syndicated to 100 and some odd stations around the country. But he was brought in with Guest, and Sean Kelly just said, "Go ahead and riff on whatever you want." That became literally the first National Lampoon album, was literally Bill Murray and Christopher Guest just improvising on tape. And that, yeah, there's nothing sacred. Yeah, this is about the radio hour. They kind of shot themselves in the foot. They lost 100 stations in one night uh, with death penalty stuff and political stuff, and there's radio stations dropped him overnight. Eventually, Maddie Simmons, the owner, pulled the plug on it. The first album was called Goodbye Pop, by the way. Sean Kelly produced it, and it was basically Guest and Murray rolling tape in a studio. But they replaced the radio show with the Mary Travers show. And Mary Travers was Mary from Peter, Paul, and Mary. This is some Lampoon folklore, but we might as well get into it. But Jerry Taylor was the head of advertising at Lampoon. He was the guy that really put Lampoon on the map, unheraldedly, in my estimation, because he was the one that sold Madison Avenue ad agencies to put massive freaking ads in the magazine that they hated. Jerry Taylor came in and with his sales staff showed the advertisers the insane reach of National Lampoon, the magazine, into the college world that they were trying to get into with liquor and cars and cigarettes and everything else. That opened the floodgates to money to Lampoon like it never existed before. And that's because of Jerry Taylor. Now, Jerry Taylor's wife was Mary Travers of Peter, Paul, and Mary. And while she was on the show, she was attacked, and I mean that in a playful, again, physical way, by Bill Murray. Bill Murray, just so people will understand this, he will pick up women, throw them on the couch, and then tickle them into histrionics. Other times, he will pick up women and hold them up and bite their ass and then let them down. I can't, it's been done so many times, I don't even know what to say. Well, it didn't fly with Mary Travers, whatever he was doing. And Bill said this is his way of dating. His way of courting women is to physically either tickle them or bite them on the ass or do something physical with them that we'll discuss a little later. But he was rejected. Now Bill Murray in 1975, he's rejected by Lorne Michaels when Lorne Michaels is putting the show together, and he is not happy about it because he is, well, let me just explain what happens. The Lemmings is a success, and the star of Lemmings is John Belushi. The second fiddle is Chevy Chase. John Belushi and Chevy Chase will have a massive feud, basically in Belushi's mind, because once they go to Lampoon, once they go to SNL, Belushi is second fiddle to Chevy Chase. And moments before that, he was, and I mean moments before that, months before that, he was the talk of the town as the star of Lemmings at the Village Gate in New York. Okay, so he's embittered. That's a separate story. We'll get into that with the Chevy Chase episode. But Belushi comes to town in '74 and begins to put together the National Lampoon Roadshow, which is the same crew, essentially, as a sequel to Lemmings. And the Roadshow goes to the Palladium in New York, which used to be the Academy of Music. If people remember that, 1971, the band made an incredible double album there. We used to go to the Academy all the time. It later becomes the Palladium, changes names. But that's where the Lampoon show starts out. And in that show, in the audience, is Martin Mull. And Martin Mull's talking to some friends. He's probably stoned or something. And Martin Mull comes backstage to thank the cast for the show. And he gets the shit beaten out of him by Bill Murray for talking during the show. This is kind of an interesting approach. Now they go on the road to Toronto. In Toronto, the same National Lampoon show is now on the road in Toronto. There's a drunken Canadian heckler in the audience. So after the show, Murray takes him into the alley, beats the living shit out of him, and breaks his arm over his knee. This is Bill Murray, folks. This is the guy that we're talking about. He then has a thing with Gilda Radner. Gilda Radner gets tired of his antics. Gilda Radner will fall in love with G.E. Smith, who is the guitar player and musical director of her show, Gilda Live, which I think was a Radio City musical at the time with Paul Schaefer. G.E. Smith will be part of that band. He will later become the lead guitar player in the Saturday Night Live band. There is Bill manhandling Gilda. Gilda doesn't want Bill to be her lover anymore. In fact, Bill Murray shows up at Gilda Live at Radio City Music Hall to see Gilda's show, and Gilda has him removed by security. Not many people know that. It didn't go well. They didn't speak to each other for a long time. Let me just put it that way. I don't want to get into the Gilda Radner thing, but she will eventually marry G.E. Smith, get divorced, marry someone else, and then Gene Wilder comes in somewhere. I could do a whole show on G.E. Smith, of course, not because of Hall & Oates, because of Dylan. But everyone, Steely Dan and Chevy Chase, will be at Bard College, where I went to school, do a story on the Blues Brothers. Yeah, I think we might have covered a little bit of the Blues Brothers, Charlie. You may want to take a look at some of the previous episodes. But with Danny gone and the Blues Brothers gone, that means, you know, that there's a gap there, and Bill Murray will eventually become the star of Saturday Night Live. But first, he replaces Chevy Chase when Chevy leaves, and he says that he is really on the back end. This is obviously Chevy Chase and Michael O'Donoghue up at Lampoon. 76, Murray's hired to replace Chase and creates the Celebrity Corner. Todd the Nerd, Knucklehead, Maniac become buzzwords, but that takes a while. He gets hate mail from everyone in the country who believe that he is the reason that Chevy Chase has left the show. Tom Davis of Franken and Davis will intercept them because he couldn't take it anymore, how many hate letters he was getting. But Bill Murray, to his uncredit, was muffing jokes live on the shows. The writers didn't want to write for him. He was flubbing lines on live TV. He would stand up at dinner in the rehearsal dinner and take sandwiches and squeeze them through his hands. He would do chin-ups, crazy chin-ups and exercises before the sketches. People were afraid of him. The writers were afraid of him. Nobody wanted to go near him. He was hired originally for 3 shows, and according to Lorne Michaels' own memoirs, he was on the verge of firing him many, many times. And he didn't know what to do with Bill Murray. He was very unprofessional, and maybe he was afraid. I don't really know what the deal was, because he'd had some chops with Second City, but not as long as Candy and those guys up in Toronto did. Finally, Lorne takes him aside. Now, keep in mind, Lorne Michaels was a Canadian comedian performer in his own right, with comedy duos and writing for Lily Tomlin. So Lorne Michaels, people look at him as an executive, but he was far more than that. He takes Bill Murray aside to save his career, and he writes a sketch called The New Guy, where Bill Murray comes on and looks at the camera and says, "I'm Bill Murray. I've not been very funny. I know that. My friends can't figure it out. I'm the new guy here. I suck. The writers don't want to write for me." And that really kind of opens the door to the American public, this ability to be self-deprecating on the part of Murray in this one sketch. Opens up the door to Bill Murray's entree into the American Comedy Society. Here he is with Lorne Michaels. Lorne Michaels is no fan of Bill Murray's to this day, because when he comes back as a superstar to the show, this is when all of them are gone, he blackmailed Lorne Michaels week after week after week to do certain things that he didn't want to do to get more airtime. It's a story for another day, but they do write the shower mic sketch. Judy Jacklin, Bill's Bellucci's wife, had given him a microphone, a soap shower. You ever see those things, a shower microphone made of soap? She gave him that for Christmas. And that turns into the shower mic sketch, and eventually Nick the Lounge Singer. And Murray and Chase did not get along even at Lampoon. This was an oil and water mixture. And Murray and Chase you know, he wasn't really there when Chase left. So Chase doesn't come back until he was hosting a couple of years later, and Murray's there. And during the time that Chase was gone, Belushi, who hated his guts for no reason other than he became a star faster than John did, had been bad mouthing Chevy Chase to the whole cast. Now, Chevy Chase had his own friends who were loyal to him, who knew him from back in the day at Lampoon and Lemmings and everything else. So it wasn't a one-way street. But clearly, the agitator for this anti-Chevy Chase sentiment at SNL was John Belushi, and this got under Murray's skin, who didn't like him either. And when Chase came back to host, it got a little awkward. Let me just put it that way. Chase was in with Franken and Davis hanging out in there. He didn't have his own room anymore, so he was a guest host. So he was hanging out with Franken and Davis in their office. Now, I've partied with Franken and Davis, so I know what these guys are about. They're pretty smart guys. But Bill Murray storms in and starts screaming at Chevy Chase just out of the blue, saying what kind of an asshole he was, and then slams the door and leaves. And even Belushi said that he was afraid of Murray. He could get him wound up, but as John Belushi said, and this is a great quote, he was a drinker, not a drugger. And a lot of people know what that means. He would, there's Belushi. Okay, let me put it this way. Bill Murray, in rehearsal and while he was up at Lampoon, would walk around with a fifth of Irish whiskey tucked into the back of his pants pocket, taking swigs off of it day and night. I know what that's like, and that could take a toll on a man. Especially, you could get wound up over it up at Studio 8H. So they're rehearsing a comedy sketch for the return of Chevy Chase, and they're in the makeup chairs, and ironically, the sketch was called Celebrity Crack Up, but Chase is in the makeup chair, and he gets into this argument with Bill Murray, and Murray says, "Why don't you go F your wife? She needs it," because there have been stories in the press of some marital discontent between Chevy Chase and his wife. It was a fairly low blow, and then Chase comes back and says, "Looks as if Neil Armstrong landed on your face," which is a great comeback, especially for a guy like Bill Murray, who's got pockmarked skin. So that doesn't go well. They then leave. Bill goes back. I just want to be emphatic about this because there's been a lot of urban myth about what happened. And there were a number of witnesses to this thing happening. Chevy finds Bill in John's dressing room. He goes in and says, "Let's go, sucker." And Chase and Murray just start punching each other in the face. Radner's in there with Lorraine Newman. They're trying to get out of the way. John Landis was in there visiting. There were some other people in there who were witnesses to this. And Belushi tries to get in between the two of them, but they both landed some heavy blows. And Chase said, later, he's never lost a fight in his life. He said, "Bill Murray thought I was some rich kid who grew up on the other side of the tracks." He said, "It's absolutely not true." He grew up as a brawler himself, Chevy Chase. And he said, I would have eaten him alive was the actual thing if it continued. And Murray's not a small guy, and Chase is definitely not a small guy. These are two big men who were punching each other in the face, both coked out of their minds, by the way. I don't know about Murray. I think Murray was just drunk. But Chase has admitted that he was gacked out of his mind. Now, as the fight ends, as they break up the fight, all of a sudden, he has to go on live. He walks out the door, Chevy Chase that is, onto the stage at Studio 8H to a massive standing ovation from the crowd as a homecoming standing ovation to Chevy Chase. What a incredible, he said he was still pumped up from the adrenaline of the fight. And now he's on stage on coke with a standing ovation. Um, yeah, it was kind of a weird thing, but that's I just there is Chase right there, and there's Murray. There was a fight between Jane Curtin, who had taken over. She'd taken over Weekend Update, and then Chase was not going to share it with her no matter what. Um, just some really arrogant things on the part of Chase, who was gacked out of his own mind in 1983. He will go to Betty Ford. We'll get into that more in the Chase episode in a couple of weeks, but Murray was really getting aggressive and demanding more airtime. And with Chase, Bellucci, and Aykroyd gone, that's when he steps into this power vacuum, and as Lorne Michaels said, became a megalomaniac and a crazy person, demanding all kinds of crazy stuff. In 1979, that'll come a little later, but 1979, he basically leaves doing this thing where they're coming and going back and forth to do a movie called Meatballs. Now, Meatballs, again, this is Ivan Reitman. Ivan Reitman, who is a Canadian, brilliant guy, and he wants to get Bill Murray on to Meatballs. And Bill Murray is legendary for not showing up until the day of the shoot with no contract, no script, no wardrobe, no makeup, no nothing. And they don't know where he is, but Reitman hires Harold Ramis because Harold Ramis, he knows, is a friend of Murray's. So when he brings in Ramis to rewrite Meatballs, he writes it for, there's Ramis here with my old shirt on. He's got my National Lampoon Radio Hour shirt, which I can't find anymore. A Little Shop of Horrors. I doubt that's the funniest Bill Murray ever was, but good luck with that thought. Anyway, so Ramis lures in Murray into Meatballs. Now, Meatballs is really, in a way, a knockoff of Animal House because it's a wealthy camp versus this shitty camp that Murray is one of the counselors of. And he shows up 2 days late in red shorts and a Hawaiian shirt and begins filming in the outfit that he shows up in. Reitman had run around Canada asking every summer camp if they can shoot there. He was turned down by like 39 different summer camps until they found the one that they were able to shoot in, Camp White Pine, up in Haliburton, Ontario, for my Canadian friends who know where that is. He plays Tripper, obviously, Bill Murray. Matt Craven is in there. There's a couple of other guys starting out their careers. Kristen DeBell is in there. But the real story is Chris Makepeace, the little kid that Murray takes under his wing. And they shoot the movie and they realize all of these shots here. This is Chris Makepeace with Murray wearing that Willie Nelson shirt, which I used to have also that he stole from me. This was all shot after the movie was wrapped. They realized in screenings that they needed to have Murray with this kid, take him under his wing. So they reshot, they wrote and shot all of these scenes with him and the kid. This was part of the movie, this camping thing. But the Chris Makepeace stuff was all shot after production was wrapped. And it was a brilliant move by Ivan Reitman. There's some debate as to who insisted on this, Ramis, the studios, or Reitman. By the way, the original name of the film was Summer Camp, but I think there was another film called Summer Camp. And then the speech that Murray gives is directly ripped from Animal House. It Just Doesn't Matter speech, where he rallies the other counselors in training to fight back against the evil camp, is taken almost directly from the Bellucci speech in Animal House about the Germans bombing Pearl Harbor, and his whole rant from that. Quite open about it, Reitman, and quite open that they were trying to make an Animal House. And the leads, even Spaz, that guy who played Spaz, was he was actually a casting director named Bloom, and they didn't have anybody to play that part. He repeated the speech when he hosted SNL season 6. That's right, Mel. That's absolutely right. That was a funny little bit, by the way. Yeah, all of those shots with Chris were done after the film wrapped. The Meatballs theme song was sung by a future radio star named Rick Dees, by the way. The budget on the film was a paltry, which is why Reitman had to use all of his wits to make this film. The budget was $1.6 million. And keep in mind, it's released when Murray was 28 years of age. And the film grosses $70 million on a $1.6 million budget. That's crack cocaine to the studios. It really is. When you take, it's one thing to make a movie for 50 million and then it grosses 100. They go, okay, we made our money back. What the fuck? But when you take a low budget thing and make a fortune, that is like their pornography. They go absolutely freaking crazy over those little movies that make a lot of money. Anyway, so he gets the Meatballs thing, kind of puts him on the map as a star, and that will, there's the poster for Meatballs, and it looks like a pretty shabby little baby kind of film, you know, which is what it is, but it's a heartfelt summer comedy that actually works because of Bill Murray. Now, it was supposed to be Chevy Chase playing that role. They were not taking any chances because they couldn't trust that Bill Murray would even show up. So there were other people that it's a pretty crappy movie. Okay, bro. That's why they copied it repeatedly of every summer camp movie ever made. It's a pretty crappy movie. Anyway, this will lead us into a Cinderella story, which was a film called Caddyshack, where he plays Carl Spackler, rather, and the character of Carl, the greenskeeper, is really derivative of Theodore of York, medieval barber. I would suggest the Carl Spackler, the character that he did on SNL. He will have an interesting relationship, so to speak, with the film itself, and he will have some problems on this film, but it will be immortalized because he will, even when Chase plays through with the golf ball into the shack of Bill Murray, the studio, again, that was not shot that was not in the original script. Here's a shot of Danny and Bill and Chase. They realized that they did not have in this script a scene with these two stars in the same scene. As odd as that seems, until Chase says, I've got to play, can I play through? Bill Murray built this shack himself by hand. He put up those posters. He dragged in those pieces of furniture. He created this on the spot the day this was shot. Because this really needed to be shot to make the movie work. And as you know, as Chase said, what makes Bill great is his danger. This is all improvised by Bill, and Chase is responding to it in kind. He has no idea where this is going to go. But they had an incident prior to that, a couple of days before, when Bill Murray is driving the grass cutting machine, the big one, this one here. Now, Chevy Chase is wearing golf shoes, and he says to Murray, please don't make any abrupt turns because I don't want to end up in that thresher over there on the side. And Murray just ignores him, makes a hard right turn, intentionally throwing Chevy off of the vehicle, just barely missing the threshing machine. That's the danger that Chase is talking about, and that is the assholery of Bill Murray that other people talk about. Caddyshack is released July 25th, 1980. It makes 600 million worldwide. It is a huge hit, and again, on a $5 million budget. It's got Rodney Dangerfield in it, who doesn't know what a movie is. They bring in an animatronic expert. If you can go back to that shot, they literally had a hand puppet with that gopher in a hand puppet scene. I don't even know if this is Trevor Albert, who was Harold Ramis's assistant, later became a big producer himself, was manning the hand puppet version of the gopher before they brought in an animatronic expert and actually made a robotic gopher. And that really changed the movie. And then you brought in the song by Kenny Loggins, which became the theme song to it. He has a Caddyshack restaurant out, and now actually in St. Augustine. They had 4 of them at one point, but they now down to 1, which is up in St. Augustine. One of the funniest things of the night that thank you, Brian. One of the funniest things was Chase is in his room and he hears a knock at the door at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he opens it up, and it's Brian Doyle Murray and his brother Bill, and they're desperate for weed. And Chase says, "I don't have any more weed. Go next door to Rodney's room. He's got tons of it." So they knock on Rodney's door, and Rodney goes, "Yeah, come on in. I got weed. I've got plenty of weed." And here, and Rodney gives them a bag that is the weight of a bowling ball. And these 2 brothers scamper out, and Rodney goes and keeps partying whatever Rodney was doing. And they get to their room and they open up the bag, which is the weight of a bowling ball, and it's all seeds and stems. They'd been fucked by Rodney in the middle of the night, which I always thought was one of the funniest thing that Rodney did on the entire film was burning the Murray brothers on weed. Maybe there's a picture of him here. This is in the golf club. We covered a bunch of this before, but this particular the scenes that Rodney was doing, he found it impossible to do his shtick because there was nobody laughing, and he didn't know that nobody laughs on a movie because it's being recorded. The situation, yeah, thank you, Brian. The situation with Rodney was really hysterical, trying to get him. And then they made up these explosions. The Fort Lauderdale airport, some of the planes landing thought that they were crashed planes. They didn't have permits to dynamite some of the berms on the golf course. The later thing was shot at Boca Raton, where Chevy Chase gets into a British car with the wheel on the other side, which was kind of funny. But that was something that O'Donoghue and Doug Kenny had told him to do that. That was kind of a funny bit. But yeah, so Caddyshack becomes, it literally grows in critic eyes. It becomes like, I think Ramis was talking about how when it started, it had 1 star and now it has 3. The film has grown into a cult thing, as many people know from Caddyshack. But again, this Murray shows up a day late, throws the script in the garbage. The Cinderella story thing, what Ramis does is remind him, have you ever played sports where you've announced as a kid your own storyline? And Murray said, "Say no more." And he goes into, this rant, a Cinderella story out of nowhere, about to become the Masters champ. That is his improvisation. But Ramis knew how to work with Murray. And he knew what to say and what not to say, and to shut his mouth and to just give him a little nugget on what, because they go all the way back. They had known each other for years, and he knew how to run Murray. And not many people do. A couple of them do today, but not in the comedy vein any longer. But, as Chase said, when he says, "I have a swimming pool and a pond, the pond would be good for you." Those are all improvised lines by Chevy Chase. There's no slouch in this matter at all. And Chevy Chase famously said, "My name was above the title, but it was Billy's movie," which is definitely true because he steals the picture. And again, he shows up, throws the script away, and begins to improvise and do his thing. Whether it's workable with the director is up to the director, but that's what you're going to get. So where does that go? It goes into a film now. Before we get into something else, he has to become Hunter S. Thompson in Where the Buffalo Roam with Peter Boyle. Now, this may have been a mistake. It may not have been a mistake. Again, Hunter Thompson is the type of guy that is in the Bill Murray non-hippie vein of the yippie culture, as Abby Hoffman called it. This is the first biopic. This will later be duplicated by Johnny Depp, obviously. in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is the first attempt to make a movie about Hunter S. Thompson. This photo here, this is Peter Boyle playing Laszlo, his Mexican attorney, and he shows up in this Chevy. This is for the LA Super Bowl that year that he's covering for Rolling Stone. And they give away the tickets to this black guy, and they go on a road trip he takes him on a road trip. Now, here's the black guy who gets the tickets outside the hotel. And not only do they give him the tickets, they give him the key to the room, and he looks highly suspicious. He takes his hat off. Does anybody know who that is? Okay, time's up. It's Otis Day from Otis Day and the Knights, from an obscure movie called Animal House. And Otis has this little cameo with this other black dude. He will later come back again. Otis, my man. He will later come back when Bruno Kirby, who's playing the owner of Rolling Stone magazine, Jan Wenner, is calling the room. This is, by the way, this is Niedermeyer from Animal House. He plays Nixon campaign manager on a plane. This is actually covering two books. It's not an incredible, complete failure of a movie. It's got its moments. It combines two books because it combines Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas with Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail. So this is the Fear and Loathing part where he goes with Laszlo to meet the revolutionaries in the desert, and skips actually attending the Super Bowl with 50-yard line seats, to the unhappiness of Rolling Stone magazine. But he will meet these deadlines. He will turn in these publications. The executive producer on this thing is Hunter Thompson himself. And the art that you saw on the poster was by the inimitable Ralph Steadman, people who know who that was, Rolling Stone artist. And this is a great shot. I mean, they're on the road, they pick up a hitchhiker. A lot of these are duplicated scenes from the Johnny Depp movie, but Murray really becomes Hunter S. Thompson. And Peter Boyle is a great actor. I knew Peter Boyle fairly well. He also came out of Second City. He was actually kicked out of Second City for being an avowed communist, not a liberal. He was kicked out for being a card-carrying communist, he told me. Anyway, so Peter Boyle and Murray team up for this movie. Now, that being said, Murray and this picture of Murray with a wig writing some copy. He will party with Hunter Thompson to the point where they begin to debate at poolside at Hunter Thompson's house or somewhere that had a pool, the merits or truth of Houdini's escapes. And they're both getting shit-faced debating about the whether Houdini was an escape artist or a bullshit artist. So Murray gets chained or roped to one of the pool chairs, and Hunter Thompson says, well, let's see, you're a big Houdini fan. Let's see if you can get out of this simple escape situation. And he throws the chair with Murray into the pool, and Murray almost drowns. Some guests of the at the party had to dive in and almost resuscitate Bill Murray, who was roped to that chair underwater, thrown in by Hunter Thompson. That's how crazy these people were getting. Not to mention the coke and everything else that they were doing. Oh, that's a great shot. Wow, look at that. Wow. Anyway, the movie got terrible reviews, but when Murray comes back to SNL, he's still in character as Hunter Thompson. Years later, Johnny Depp, the Hunter Thompson effect lasts on you, so I know how much longer I have because I can't get rid of it. And Murray said it took at least a year and a half to get the Hunter Thompson thing, out of his craw. Yeah, it's weird, right? Thanks, Pew Pew. Yeah, it's just a weird life. Anyway, so Murray comes back as Hunter Thompson and he begins becoming a megalomaniac, like I said before, on SNL, and he turns on everyone. He just is flexing his star power. He makes all these crazy demands on Lorne Michaels. It does not go well. It takes him a while to actually become the old Bill Murray, and finally settle down. But in 1981, a little bit later, when he does settle down, he begins to work again. Thank you for what you do. Yeah, Charlie don't serve. But he does watch this show. I took LSD with Thompson in the van at a Grateful Dead concert. I hope he got out of the van alive. I was in a bed for Game 7, Lakers and Celtics, in a king-size bed in upstate New York on liquid acid with Franken and Davis, and later downstairs with the inimitable Dan Aykroyd doing liquid acid with me, which I'll talk about in the Dan Aykroyd episode at the Burnathon in Surprise, New York, which many of the SNL guys and us used to go to. Okay, so getting back to 1981, Stripes is the next project that he jumps on board for. Again, same thing, can't find Bill Murray. This is Ivan Reitman. Murray shows up the first day of shooting. It's another ensemble piece. It's shot at Fort Knox in Kentucky. Most of you people realize that. But what you don't realize is how the Department of Defense went over that script with a fine-tooth comb. And it had to give script notes to approve or disapprove stuff about the Army, which is very common with military pictures. If you want their hardware, if you want to use Fort Knox, if you want those tanks, you have to play ball with the Department of War. Oliver Stone, it did not work out for him in Salvador. He had to rent all his equipment from the neighboring countries. The military equipment, they wouldn't give him anything, even though he had a Silver Star, Purple Heart. Didn't matter. You're not getting our toys. The EM-50 urban assault vehicle, for people who are curious about that, was a 1973 GMC motorhome that they souped up. The movie grossed $85 million, and again, a little bit more expensive, Stripes, but not so much more. Came out in 1981, and we covered it in the John Candy episode quite a bit. This is the mud wrestling scene where Murray is egging him on, and he had experience with Candy, obviously, improvisationally. They completely improvised this entire scene, according to Reitman, and none of that was really in the original. These guys, made this happen through their improvisational comedy skills, and Murray, there's Candy right there. He was not too happy about it, Candy, because they wanted him to be in his underwear, and he negotiated that full suit there. Also in 1981, just on a private note, he marries Mickey Kelly, who is his high school sweetheart, at the Super Bowl. They go to Vegas on Super Bowl Sunday and get married. It's not going to last forever. He's going to have a second wife, but this is his first marriage, so actually legal marriage. So he does that in the same year that Stripes comes out. So it's kind of a big deal for him that particular year. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and some of that stuff that's going on may lead to another great film, which was called Ghostbusters. Now we're going to get into Ghostbusters in a second, but I just want to finish on this is actually his family. That's his brother on the left that I know, and that's Brian on the right, and that's look how big Bill is, just so you get a sense of proportion. Originally, Stripes was called Cheech and Chong Goes to the Movies. Now, Reitman had gone in and pitched this to the executives, and they said, okay, we could go with Cheech and Chong. However, Cheech and Chong, the maniacs that they were, wanted complete creative control over the movie, and nobody in their right mind was going to do that. And that's when Reitman brought in Ramis to, again, rewrite the movie away from Cheech and Chong, and make it a Bill Murray picture, not to be a good guy, but to suck in Bill Murray. And then, yeah, that's from the Lampoon days. That's from the radio show right there. That's Ramis and Radner Murray, and obviously Brian Doyle. Ramis is used, and he doesn't want to act in the movie. He doesn't really like acting, Harold Ramis, and he'll get his own episode because he is a god, a comedy god among men. But Murray calls his bluff and says, I'm not going to do this picture unless you act in it with me. So Ramis reluctantly becomes the character, the sidekick to the movie. Now, there are scenes in Stripes that you've never seen before that I'm going to tell you about, because there is a scene which was cut out where they do 8 hits of acid, thinking that it's Dramamine, according to that story beat. And they end up stowing away on a special forces paratrooper mission to Central America with these brutally harsh Army Rangers who are on board the plane, and they give them parachutes, and they've got to bail out over Nicaragua on acid, which they do. It's an hysterically funny scene. I think it was cut for time, and it's absolutely hysterical because they meet up with the rebels, and then they mix in acid into the rebels' stew, and then all the rebels are tripping, and Ramis leads them in a sing-along, and they escape through the jungle just in time to get back onto the paratrooper C-140 plane to fly back to Kentucky, where they rejoin their crew at the base. And then the girls get involved. You know, Sean Young is in it. She's fantastic with Ramis. And then the Murray girl, when he's using the spatula on her at the general's house, as you recall, completely improvised, shot at 4 o'clock in the morning as an improvisational scene. And this movie has a lot of improvisation in it, but the director's cut, if you can ever find it, there's about another 30 minutes in the director's cut that really fill out the movie and make it a little bit stronger. I mean, it's almost a 2-part movie, because when they go with the fighting machine behind the Soviet lines with the EM-50, Ramis said that was all Ivan Reitman. Reitman had come from Czechoslovakia, had fled Soviet oppression to Canada, and this was his FU to the Soviets by having, and I think Joe Flaherty was one of the border guards, if I recall. This was Reitman's FU to the Soviets, having this action comedy thing come out of nowhere. It's almost like a separate movie. And they go and, they get arrested, and then Candy breaks the door down. They get freed. Murray has a machine gun. But a whole different movie if you look at it. And I like part 2 quite a bit, but Ramis did not. And he said that was all Ivan Reitman's dream sequence of getting even with the Soviet Union. I think you could watch an extended version, but there's even more to it on the DVDs. So I recommend you get the DVDs, because you don't know what Prime is cut out, as I keep saying over and over again, like a broken record. But in a drug-free America, yeah. That's kind of funny. Anyway, so the movie is a huge hit. Stripes becomes, also into the vernacular of the American culture. A lot of these comedies, just as an editorial note, a lot of American comedies don't work overseas because, yes, DVDs, dogs, got to go with them. They don't work overseas because of cultural reasons. These 70s movies that these guys were making had big overseas, and that was unusual. The studios were quite reluctant to make comedies unless they were made for song and dance, because they usually failed overseas because of cultural reasons, language reasons. In other words, we're going to get into Groundhog Day later. In Brazil, Groundhog Day is called the Black Hole of Love, because there is no Groundhog's Day in all these foreign countries, if you think about it. So it's part of the marketing problems that they don't like. Okay, June 8th, 1984, #1 movie on the charts for 7 consecutive weeks and a massive hit overseas, which is why I was just telling you this. Ghostbusters is released, and Ghostbusters will make $370 million once the dust settles on a fairly high budget for the time of about 25 to 30 million. But they were willing to take a chance on these guys. And I think it was about 25 million. Keep in mind, Eddie Murphy was originally supposed to be in it. And they were replaced by Ernie Hudson. Candy was supposed to play the Louis Tully role, but for reasons that nobody can explain, he demanded that his role be that of a German in lederhosen with 2 gigantic German dogs who lived in that apartment, and these guys were not happy with that idea. So they eventually gave it to Rick Moranis, who plays the accountant, obviously. But Peter Venkman was supposed to be Belushi, as I mentioned earlier in the show. This was written for John Belushi, and it's not until John Belushi's funeral, that Murray shows up because of Belushi's death, that he begins to get back into the fold with his old SNL cronies of Aykroyd, who had written Ghostbusters. Now, here's a rare photo of the funeral. There may be a couple of photos there. Murray was deeply crushed by the death of Belushi. He called him the Beast. He thought he was superhuman. He thought nothing could kill him. And I think that might be my old art director, Peter Kleinman, up in the right-hand corner. But Murray gets in touch with Aykroyd, and Aykroyd begins to tell him about Ghostbusters and replacing Belushi in that movie. Now, the original is set in a future New York City, thousands of years in the future. And what's his name? Reitman said, "This is unfilmable, bro." But they thought about Michael Keaton as Venkman. There were a lot of Venkmans before they ended up with Murray, because nobody could trust Bill Murray showing up. Now, this is really where it comes from. Aykroyd was using some films. I don't know if you remember these films. Hold That Ghost, 1941, Abbott and Costello. The Ghost Breakers with Bob Hope in 1940. The Bowery Boys did a film in 1951 called Ghost Chasers. Aykroyd is a genius. Nobody disputes that. He was using these films, but he also comes from a background. When you talk to Aykroyd, there's a lot of supernatural UFO conversation. Let me just put that way. His brother was like that. Peter was like that too. And there's a reason. I'm going to tell you the reason right now. They take a slug off this Gatorade here. Okay, you say it's a perfect cast because you never saw the other cast. Everyone always says that on a finished film, but you never saw the other group. Dan Aykroyd's father was an author who wrote a book called The History of Ghosts. His grandfather used radio frequencies. This is all up in Canada. His grandfather used radio frequencies to attempt to contact ghosts. And Dan's great-grandfather was a renowned British spiritualist who held celebrity seances. So this lineage in Dan Aykroyd is not Ghostbusters originating there. This goes all the way back in his family tree, all the way back to England, of a family obsessed with ghosts and the supernatural and everything else. His tribute to John, by the way, to Belushi, is the Slimer character that's eating all the green ghost that's flying around eating the food off the tray. That he dedicated completely to John's scene in Animal House, where he scoffs down all the food in the dining room. That was his tribute to his late friend. I'll tell you something else about the film. I went to see it with my friends when it came out. I never do this. There was a theater on 23rd Street in Manhattan where it opened. We went to, I think, 5 days in a row to multiple screenings all week. And usually that theater just had old widows in it, and they just old ladies who would just sit in that theater no matter what was playing. And we were in there laughing at this thing in 1984, that summer, every single day. I've never done this before. The only time I ever did it was with Field of Dreams, where I went back day after day to see Field of Dreams. This was the only time I did this with a comedy, and we were just crying. We just couldn't get over it. It just destroyed us comically, and rightfully so. But if you remember the movie, hated the way Joe Rogan treated Dan Aykroyd on his podcast. I don't know anything about that, but Dan Aykroyd is a god. In the movie, there's the parody commercial of calling the Ghostbusters. Dan Aykroyd wanted the Ghostbusters to be like rodent collectors that anyone would call for having rodents, like they were just common blue collar workers. He didn't want to make it highfalutin, and it was a great idea. But one of the great ideas was, maybe people don't realize, the parody commercial that they did where they said they're Ghostbusters, you have to call us. The number was 555-2368. The commercial said the message, is to call us. I think this might be the scene from the commercial within the film when they were becoming popular and overworked, with Ernie Hudson, who had the script cut way down. Ernie Hudson, unfortunately for him, they gave a bunch of his airtime to Bill Murray, and he was not Eddie Murphy. Hence, his gigantic part got smaller and smaller and smaller as the weeks went on. But Sigourney Weaver, interestingly enough, shows up at the casting session, wants the job so badly that she comes into the casting session, gets down on all four knees, and starts barking and acting like a dog. And she gets the role because of Aliens, really. But anyway, so this number 555-2368, everybody watching the film called the number, and there was an answering machine on the number, and it was Bill Murray saying, "Sorry, I can't answer the phone right now. We're busy catching ghosts." There it is. I don't know if this is 2368, right? I think that's 555, the BG there, and 216 is some random area code. But everyone called the number, and the answering machine, they were getting $1 a call. The production made tens of thousands of dollars just on this phone call scam from the movie. Just a brilliant little side note for people who didn't know that. But like I said before, Murray is coming back from India to make this movie because he blackmailed Frank Price, the head of Columbia Pictures, saying, "I'm not doing your stupid college biggie goes to school movies anymore unless you fund my personal project, Somerset Maugham's The Razor's Edge," which is set in India during World War I, where Bill Murray and his brothers are ambulance drivers in a war picture that looks like The Great Gatsby. Completely insane movie. This is him and his brother driving an ambulance. They get blown up. His brother is Brian Doyle. He'll be blown to smithereens. There's Bill driving the ambulance. Frank Price, the head of the studio, reluctantly agrees to give Murray this movie and the money for this bomb to get him into Ghostbusters. And Murray agrees to do Ghostbusters. There's even a black guy in the movie. It's really weird because it's set in like 1915 in England. But anyway, or not in England. Well, this is in England, but it's also in the battlefields. Okay, so Murray reads the script in the limo, and he's coming back, and from the airport, doesn't know anything, and he said he knew it was a massive hit while they were making it. He completely predicted everything about how this movie would turn out financially. In the backdrop were New York City apartments. That was all done on a soundstage here in LA. But in the windows of all those different apartments, this is really inside baseball. The art department put tiny people in each apartment having different sexual activities going on. Here's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that Dan Aykroyd, this is in the original script, it was said Marshmallow Man. He will crush the church, which is right next to, ironically, since there are a lot of Catholic boys on this set, he will crush the church, which is right next to 55 Central Park West, which is the building depicted in the movie on Central Park West. This is at Columbus Circle. You see him coming up here. The other scene will be the Firehouse Hook and Ladder Company 8. That will be the headquarters for the Ghostbusters. Interestingly, lived in 55 Central Park West, was not happy about them disrupting the entire freaking building. And his name was Isaac Asimov. And Aykroyd revered him because of his science fiction writing background. And this guy was a tenant who owned the apartment, Isaac Asimov, and was flipping out that they were disrupting life in the building. And he was very embarrassed about this, Aykroyd, because Asimov was one of his heroes. So, I mean, John Candy could have been in the movie. He did not come into the movie because of his own crazy demands. But what's his name? Moranis almost steals the picture, and it makes Moranis a bankable film star, ironically. I mean, Moranis really takes off after this. You know what I mean? He really becomes a guy they want to put in movies. You talk about some odd leading men. Rick Moranis will do the Schmengi Brothers. He will do Armed and Dangerous and a bunch of other stuff. But at one point, the film was just, this dude, I can't get enough of Rick Moranis. I had a job running a sports camp in New York years later when I was writing at home. And I had this part-time job where we would pick up kids from private schools, young kids, and take them to teach them sports. It was like 2 hours a day as a straight job. But one of the kids was Rick Moranis's kid, and I got to meet and hang out with Moranis, who had his kid going to a private school there in New York. He was also like a tiny version of Rick Moranis. We were teaching him how to play basketball and hockey for some reason. Somehow I was on skates teaching hockey up in Harlem. That should be an episode someday. I'm not even a hockey player, but I was hockey. Now, don't forget, there's also the Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters song, which became the #1 hit, and they made a video about that. And even Chevy Chase was in that video, twirling cigarettes in his mouth. I don't know if people remember that, but he is in that video. But here's the weird thing: Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis in the News sued Ray Parker Jr., saying he stole "I Want a New Drug" from him, and that went to court. That got settled out of court. Maybe we got a picture of making the video in Times Square. Yeah, there's Ray Parker Jr., who claims to have been the genius behind the Ghostbusters theme song. Apparently, somebody thought otherwise. I don't know what the final settlement was, but somebody got paid. Okay, so you got the voice of Zool. That is Ivan Reitman in post-production, doing it himself. You've got the Ghostbusters. This is partially my analysis, although I think maybe people could see it. It really is a Marx Brothers movie with William Atherton, Walter Peck, being Dumont. Bill Murray himself has been described by Ramis as all the Marx Brothers rolled into one. The wisecracking of Groucho, the common man of Chico, the pantomime and sex grabbing by Harpo. An argument could be made, or a PhD could probably be written, that A, the Ghostbusters is really a Marx Brothers movie, and B, that Murray could conceivably be all the Marx Brothers rolled into one. Any way you want to spin that is up to you. It's just something. Yeah, there's the cigarette thing that Chase did. Really weird piece of screen business by Chevy. He went up to, after this incident, by the way, he was at a Hollywood party packed in Beverly Hills, and he saw Bill Murray at the pool, and he gets infuriated, and he says, I'm going to end this right now. This is like 2 or 3 years later. And he goes up to him like he was going to kill him, and he gets down on his knees, unzips his fly as if he's going to perform fellatio on him, and Murray cracks up laughing, and Chase cracks up, and the whole thing was a stunt by Chase, and Murray had a good sense of humor about the whole thing. And they kind of made up at that point. I don't know if it healed completely their wounds, but that's the way Chase played it. And we'll get into that a little more in a couple of weeks. But okay, so Ghostbusters, this was something I wanted to get into, because Ghostbusters comes out and it makes all this money, and Murray is inundated with requests from every single agent, every single producer on the face of the earth, every script and everything else. And that's where he leaves the United States and goes to France and does no major studio pictures for 4 years at the peak. This is at the height of his fame, the height of his money, the height of everything. He leaves the country and he goes to France. Okay, this is where the story is going to get a little weird, because he gets involved with a guru who is no longer alive named Georges Gurdjieff. Now, Gurdjieff was a Russian, Armenian cult leader, philosopher, guru, quack, charlatan. It's on both sides of the coin. He wrote about 4 books. One of them was called The Fourth Way, I believe. And he's a philosopher, and he's long dead. In 49, he dies in Paris. He's stateless, Gurdjieff. He's kind of like an Aleister Crowley figure. And he has no country anymore. And he's living in Paris. And he opens up the Institute for the Harmonious something of man, development of man. And he writes this masterpiece called Beelzebub's Tales of His Grandson. Gurdjieff is a strange guy, but his philosophy is basically living in the moment. His philosophy is that people are asleep. His philosophy is that you need to wake up your fellow man and that you need to live in the moment. It's not a bizarre philosophy at all. In fact, it has been usurped by many other philosophies following Gurdjieff. However, that being said, Bill Murray, oh, here's a picture of Gurdjieff. Yeah, there's some, wow, that must be in Paris around the 40s. Wow. Yeah, there's the Gurdjieff that I know. In the 70s, he was huge. I got to tell you, it was not huge, but I mean, in counterculture stuff, Gurdjieff was a name. I haven't heard his name mentioned in 30 years until I started digging back into Bill Murray this past couple of weeks. But he begins to become part of the Gurdjieff world. And as I said, it's not the living Gurdjieff, it's his followers. And they, every year on January 13th, yeah, wow, there it is. Wow. Gurdjieff's Institute. Okay, so part of his philosophy from the Sly Man is that he's a prankster. Gurdjieff, as I recall, was a prankster, a guy who would walk by you and tip your hat off your head to make you awake, to make you be. He said people sleepwalk their entire lives. It's not a bizarre analysis of most modern 20th century men's and women's lives. He says your job as a fellow man is to wake up your fellow man from this slumber of the 9-to-5 job, of your daily routine. Murray will explore this again in the upcoming movie we'll discuss in Groundhog Day. This is also part of the philosophy discussed. However, part of the things that Gurdjieff did were pranks, knocking people's hats off, knocking their canes off, pushing them around, coming up to them. This is where Bill Murray gets this. Bill Murray gets all this stuff where he shows up at people's houses. He puts his hands over, takes people's cigarettes. He takes their money and he whispers in their ear, no one will ever believe you. This is a common Bill Murray refrain. He will walk down the street, say we're being chased by lobsters, get people razzed up, then go up to people and take a cigarette from them, or put money in their pocket. All of this stuff comes from Gear Jeff. Nobody realizes where Bill Murray got this. Murray got this from Gear Jeff. This is what Gear Jeff preached, and that was slumber that he's in, and teach them a lesson. Murray, for better or for worse, thinks that he should teach people a lesson. And one of his lessons is, going to these parties. Like he went to a rooftop party. Some of them are fun, some of them not so fun. Went to a rooftop party and they're all up there in Brooklyn. He gathers up, he says, give me all your cell phones. They put them in a basket and he throws them off the roof and leaves the party. Now you tell me that group was pretty happy about him teaching them a lesson on how not to use cell phones. Yeah, in Charleston, South Carolina, had home down there. And he also had the minor league franchises down there. Well, I'll tell you my own. I mean, he lived in the Hudson Valley. My friend Kevin called me up when I was living in Hunter Mountain, and he says, you'll never guess who's at the train station with me right now. And I said, who? And he said, Bill Murray. And he's got no shoes on. He's got shorts. I think he's drunk. And I said, put him on the phone. So he puts Murray on the phone, and I'm telling him about Lampoon, and he's having a conversation with me. We're talking about Maddie Simmons. It's at the payphone at the train station in Hudson, New York. And Murray's house was in the Hudson Valley near there. So he gets on, unbeknownst to me, he gets on the train with my friend Kevin, who was also my drug dealing partner, by the way, side note. And Kevin is going to a July 4th barbecue at his own family's house in New Jersey. And he shows up with Bill Murray, who stays all day and night, taking pictures with Kevin's family, cooking, drinking with them. He stays for like 6 hours. And then a Cadillac convertible pulls up with 3 girls in it. In bikinis. They honk the horn. Murray says, I gotta go, says goodbye to everyone, gets in the Cadillac and drives away. And that was Kevin's experience with Murray doing that. I think we covered about the 800 number though. And so anyway, so he does this all over the place. Some of them are funny, some of them not so funny. I remember being at the Blues Bar being this place that Aykroyd had opened for after hours SNL drinking downtown. It's on Dominic Street. It was a shithole little garage that he kept his motorcycles in, but they had like a wooden plank and barrels, and it was a bar. There was no money involved. Everybody was a bartender. Bill Murray had been a bartender there. I bartended there, but you weren't buying drinks. You were just serving, and nobody ever went in the bathroom because it was a bathroom that made the CBGB's bathroom look like the Waldorf Astoria. But anyway, that was the Blues Bar down there on Dominic Street. But Murray learns all this, I believe, from Gear Jeff. And this becomes the change in Bill Murray. When Bill Murray comes back from France after this sojourn, after the height of his fame, he does not want to do comedy any longer. He wants to become a serious actor. And that's really what he tries to do with The Razor's Edge. He does obviously a sarcastic thing with Little Shop of Horrors in '86. He does this bank heist with Gina Davis in 1990 with Randy Quaid, where he plays a clown. Kingpin, obviously a comedy in '96, but this is all years later. In 1993, he begins to work on, well, let's go back to 91, because 91, he does this film called What About Bob, and with Richard, and I don't know if we have any photos from the What About Bob Richard Dreyfuss segment, because that is a very, very interesting period. This film is produced by Laura Ziskin, who will later become the head of the studio. She becomes one of the first women producers. She will have to go to war uh, with Bill Murray, as many people have, and it's not going to end well for anybody on this film. Just to give you the plot, Bill Murray is passed over by a psychiatrist to Richard Dreyfuss, who's got a new book coming out, and he's kind of full of himself as a psychiatrist. Bill Murray latches onto him. Early in the film, Bill Murray follows him up to his vacation headquarters and drives him absolutely insane, and he can't get rid of him in this film called What About Bob? And Bill Murray was quite at odds with Richard Dreyfuss in this film. To say they did not get along well was an understatement, but he also didn't get along well with anybody. They were trying to get Robin Williams to do this film, and they couldn't get Robin, so they ended up again. At one point, he throws Laura Ziskin into the lake. At one point, he breaks her glasses, smashing them on her face. At one point, he is at dinner with there's our old friend. At one point, he's at dinner. This is playing. She's playing what's his name's wife, Richard Dreyfuss's wife. At one point in the film, they were in a camper. Bill Murray. They were filming at a stop sign in the woods. Bill Murray and the crew, and a camper pulled up with kids in it, yelling, "Hey, Bill Murray!" And they start yelling his name. And at the stop sign, he gets into the camper and disappears for 2 days. This is what he's doing on these sets, and everyone's looking around going, now what do we do? He comes back, he has dinner with Dreyfuss, and over dinner, Murray leans into him and says, you're a moderate talent and nobody likes you. They merely tolerate you. Now, keep in mind, this is Richard F. and Dreyfuss he's saying this to. He then leans back in his chair, takes a 2-pound glass ashtray, Murray, chucks it at Dreyfuss's head, and misses his skull by an inch, and then leaves the restaurant. This is Bill Murray. Dreyfuss' depiction of Bill Murray was a statement. He said, he's an Irish drunken bully. That's what he was, and that's what he is. And that's Richard Dreyfuss. I don't know if he ever spoke to him again. Dreyfuss is a very small guy. He's probably 5'7", 5'6", and Murray, is like 6'3". So I don't think he's far off in his depiction of Murray. And this What About Bob, made money. But what a battle to the death on this picture with violence all around it, and then, other hijinks ensued. I was watching the movie again the other day. There are some funny things in there, but you could tell that there's a strain on the screen. Which leads us into what I was saying, into Groundhog Day. Now, Groundhog Day, 1993, Andy McDowell was supposed to be played by Tori Amos, interestingly enough. I never knew that. He likes his booze. He definitely does. Kevin Kline was supposed to play the part of Bill Murray, by the way, or Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks said, no one's going to believe that I'm a bad guy. Tom Hanks was talking Harold Ramis out of it for months. And he said, nobody's going to buy that I am this evil guy. And they're just going to be waiting for me to turn into the nice guy. Tom Hanks was absolutely correct. Tom Hanks said, I can't do this picture. Nobody's going to buy it. So they had to rely on Bill Murray once again showing up to do this picture. And here he is as a weatherman showing up at Punxsutawney to see Phil, to see the groundhog come out with his brother. Kevin Kline could have pulled it off. Yeah, I think so. That was the only one I thought could really do it. He will also have some interesting problems with, I hate to say even Andy McDowell, but, she's such a sweetheart. I don't know how you could have any problems with Andy McDowell. But 1993 was the year of the family film. They were starting to make more family films. This is near the end when he becomes a mensch. Stephen Tobolowsky was in there. Remember him as Ned Ryerson, The Pest. Danny Rubin wrote the script, a brilliant script, and he retained the musical rights to it, and he had a story by credit. So he actually mounted it at the Old Vic in 2016, and then on Broadway in 2017 as a musical, The Groundhog Day. But what you're seeing in the character is this Kubler-Ross thing of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, the five so-called stages of grief. That's what Murray's doing as a character. I don't know if people see this, but according to Ramis, every single group on the earth contacted him. The first night it opened, they were driving around Hollywood and they went to Santa Monica in this theater, and Hasidic Jews were outside protesting the movie. At least they thought they were. And when they showed up, the Hasidic Jews were embracing the movie, saying, you too can change your life, with protest signs. If you embrace this type of philosophy, you could join us. Well, Ramis is later contacted by Buddhist organizations, by psychological organizations, by psychiatric organizations, by Indian, by Hindu, every organization in the world saying you've embraced our philosophy in this movie. And it becomes this philosophical cult hit. Just on that level, by psychiatrists, psychologists, cult leaders, Hindu people, everybody gets involved in this thing. And like I said, in Brazil, it's called the black hole of love, which he finally says at the end. I think the line was, I know your face so well, I could have done with my eyes closed. I could have done this. I mean, how much he knew her face because of how many times she was in there in the movie. But a lot of this is the new Murray. A lot of this is going to lead into the Wes Anderson Murray. A lot of this is going to lead into away from the slapstick comedy of Murray, although there is some smashing of radios and things of that nature occurring in Groundhog Day. It also becomes a moderate hit. It grows in cult status over the years. It's not one of these incredible, gigantic hits. But for instance, like in the movie Quick Change, he is a co-director on this, Murray. Just to get back to Gina Davis for a second. All of his leading ladies have the same kind of look. If you take a look, this is Quick Change with Gina Davis. She is harassed by him. He is a co-director and a star, and I believe a producer on this, Bill Murray, and it's a heist movie. And he just runs her ragged on this film, screaming at her, embarrassing her in front of New York City crowds that are extras in the scene, yelling for her to get out of the fucking trailer. He tries to use this vibrator on her in a hotel room, and she's not having it. I mean, really stuff that's going to get you in a lot of trouble. This is 1990. It will catch up with him years later. But 93, he does Mad Dog and Glory. 96, he does Kingpin. The Kingpin turn is unbelievable. It's a Farrelly Brothers movie. The art director was my friend Sidney Bartholomew, who I lived with up on Argyle in Hollywood for many years, passed away from drugs. He would do Dumb and Dumber, but he also did Kingpin. And I don't know if you have any shots of Kingpin, but he plays this bowler with this crazy hairdo going on. This is the Farrelly Brothers bowling movie with Woody Harrelson, and they become really close friends, him and Woody, on this bowling movie. In fact, Woody Harrelson, this turn by Murray is freaking unbelievable as this evil pro bowler antagonist to Woody Harrelson. I'll just tell you this, and this is from the Farrelly Brothers, from my friend. There's a huge crowd for this bowling tournament, and Peter Farrelly tells the crowd, you may have to be here all day because we need the character of Bill Murray to bowl 3 consecutive strikes. This may take hours and hours, so we'd like you to pace yourself in the cheering of Bill Murray when and if he ever throws a strike on this particular setup. And the crowd is in there. There's hundreds. If you've seen Kingpin, there's hundreds of people there for this bowling tournament. And Murray goes up to the line, and the first throw, he bowls a strike. The second throw, he bowls a strike. The third throw, he bowls a strike. Game over. The crowd goes batshit crazy over this real life event in the movie of Murray throwing 3 consecutive strikes in a movie. And it's filmed as that by the Farrelly brothers. An amazing piece of cinema history in this, crazy, weird Kingpin comedy, which I think you might want to get on DVD. There's some great magic moments in there. Yeah, look at this. This is intentional by the hair and makeup department working with Bill Murray on this crazy comb over that he had. And oh man, there's so many great scenes in Kingpin. He does The Man Who Knew Too Little. Oh yeah, you might be able to subscribe right now. You know what? I gotta go to the bathroom because I'm sick. So I'll be right back while you're subscribing, just because I've been taking a lot of fluid and I'm still ill. Okay. And we're back in. Okay, where was I on this crazy story of Bill Murray? Holy mackerel. He owns these minor league teams, the Charleston River Dogs, the Hudson Valley Renegades, and the Brockton Sox, by the way, as his side business of owning minor league teams. And man, it's overlooked. Yes, there's too many to look at here. And I'm trying to get through it. I mean, because there's so many films. He does 2004. He does Garfield, the movie. Life Aquatic obviously begins to get into the Wes Anderson thing, but you begin to see this new Murray in Groundhog Day, and they fight. So the point of the story is they fight tooth and nail, Ramis and Murray, because Ramis is a comedy director and he's trying to pull more comedy out of this movie than Bill Murray will allow. And Ramis and him have arguments like they did before, and he is intractable, Bill Murray, on what he wants to do in this film. After Groundhog Day, he never spoke to Harold Ramis for the rest of his life. He was brought to Harold Ramis's deathbed by his 2 brothers, who just said, it's enough already. He's dying. You need to get some closure on this. And he visited Bill Murray. Bill Murray visited Harold Ramis on his deathbed, literally a month before he died, to get some closure on the thing. But he never spoke to him his entire life. And Ramis was haunted by this. He said, I don't know what I did. He won't explain it. He never does. I don't know what his problem is with me. I've known him for so many years. Ramis spoke so highly of Murray, and Murray would never explain what his bitterness was towards Ramis. But this was typical of the alcoholic Murray. And other alcoholics who do this, who just have silent scorn for people, where they just won't talk to them ever again. He does this repeatedly throughout his life. There's Ramis again with my shirt on. He will then, the costume lady from his films, not the script lady, marries the costume lady, and he will have 6 boys, Murray, 2 with the first wife and 4 with the second wife. He has 6 sons. And the second wife sues him for divorce. And in the divorce proceedings, she said that he repeatedly beat her, punched her in the face, threatened to kill her, would disappear, go to Europe and have affairs on drugs and alcohol, weed, alcohol, and various substances would disappear at a moment. So this is all in the divorce papers. She ends up with $75 million, a home, and some other stuff. I think they had some kind of a prenup, but the violence was there. She expressed it as the reason for it, and his adulterous behavior and whatever. There's a lot of meat on this bone. Somehow he has enough friends to weather these storms. Jennifer Butler, there she is. Yeah, she at the Academy Awards, where she was his wardrobe assistant, I think, on a number of films, and then the mother of four of his sons. So she paid her dues for this situation. But yeah, he will do The Life Aquatic and get in 2004. Let me see where we are. I wanted to just touch on 1996. A movie that I really like is called Larger with Life, with Bill Murray with an elephant. I just totally love this movie. Again, nobody really cares about it. But I just loved him being chased by that freaking elephant. I don't know. I got a kick out of it. Nobody's ever done it. It looked like Dumbo the elephant. He will then move into Garfield. That was 1996. So he will, in 2001, hook up, I believe, for the first time with Wes Anderson on the Royal Tenenbaums. This will lead again to some sort of conflict with Gene Hackman, who is featured in the center of the film. That's Owen Wilson, Danny Glover, Bill Murray, Gwyneth Paltrow, Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, and the inimitable Gene Hackman, who, on the eve of his death, there's Gene Hackman with Wes Anderson and Bill Murray. Hackman was riding Wes Anderson because Hackman had done 5 million films and was trying to tell Wes Anderson that he didn't know what he was doing. It was like his first, second, or third film. And he was riding the guy saying, I don't have time for this shit. And then Bill Murray gets into it with Gene Hackman supposedly defending Wes Anderson, and they almost come to blows. Hackman's about 20 years older than Bill Murray here, by the way, despite the gray beard of Murray. So anyway, he almost goes to blows with Gene Hackman in this thing. And then he does 10 Wes Anderson films, by the way, which is hard to believe that he's done so many. But the first one is the Royal Tenenbaums, and that is in 2001. So this becomes a whole new serious, dramatic, tongue-in-cheek, whatever you want to call it, sardonic, underacting Bill Murray. I call it the Valium years, where he is totally sedate, whether it's natural sedation or chemical, I don't know. But he will do The Life Aquatic. He will do Fantastic Mr. Fox. He will, which is animated, or robotic, animatronic. He will do Lost in Translation in 2003. I just want to get into that because it's Sofia Coppola, also not knowing if Bill Murray's going to show up. It's based on a true story about Sofia Coppola. Some people believe it's Harrison Ford. Some people believe it's Jack Nicholson, who the character is that he's playing. Nevertheless, it is a film star, a major film star, oddly enough, who comes to Tokyo to do a whiskey commercial. He's by himself. He has no entourage. And some people know who he is. It's kind of weird. You don't know how big of a star he is, but he's got billboards around Tokyo. And he's Nicholsonian, Jack Nicholsonian in his stardom. He kind of looks like Nicholson, the way he's dressed and his hair and everything else. I don't know. But Sofia Coppola had a fling with this particular real guy when she was in Tokyo. Now, her father is obviously the producer. The money comes out of her father. The DP is work with her father. So this is the ultimate Nepo baby, mumblecore indie film, but puts Bill Murray on the map in terms of these indie films, although the Wes Anderson ones kind of do too, but they made a big to-do out of this thing. And part of it is because he whispers in her ear at the end of the film, and there's been a lot of cult following as to what Bill Murray whispers into the ear of Scarlett Johansson at the end of the film in the streets of Tokyo. Some lip readers have said that he said, "I want you to go back to that man and tell him you're done with him." There's different variations of what he said. Alan, thanks, bro. Sorry I didn't see you in Dallas. I missed you there. Thank you so much for the incredible donation. I'm still sick as a dog, though, but I'm getting better. Okay, so I don't know what he whispered in her ear. The movie drove me insane. He's not really playing a superstar, but he is. And she walks around to travelogue. Japan paid some money to get this travelogue out of her. All of the B-roll is just Tokyo. It's just scenes in Tokyo. There's some funny scenes. There's some karaoke stuff, but it's really a movie for a cult following, I guess, of people who worship Sofia Coppola. I'm not one of them because I think she's just a Nepo baby with a camera, but that's just me. Okay, so he does that. Then he starts getting into this he does Broken Flowers in 2005, and he gets into a Jim Jarmusch thing. Again, you talk about a non-movie with Jim Jarmusch. This is a guy who receives a letter saying he has a kid, and he goes back and finds his old girlfriends to see if he had a kid with them. And he's also a wealthy businessman who invested money. He's supposedly like a Steve Jobs or something. And he goes back to each of these girls to find out if they had a kid with him. And it's awkward. And it turns out that maybe absolutely none of them did. Or maybe somebody did. I don't really know what Jim Jarmusch was thinking, but it can't be any better than Coffee and Cigarettes, where Bill Murray is with the Wu-Tang Clan as a waiter serving coffee to the Wu-Tang Clan, and then sits in a booth and guzzles coffee with them. Maybe there's a black and white photo that we have of this. This is so the Wu-Tangers, Rizzer and Jizzer, go, "Oh my God, it's motherfucker Bill Murray," and he sits down and guzzles that pot of coffee with them and talks to them about his little philosophy of life. Again, much ado about nothing. Jarmusch somehow contacted Bill Murray and Murray said, "How long is the shoot?" He said, "I'm free this afternoon." So he came over and did the scene as part of the movie. There's other ones in there. The Iggy Pop with Tom Waits is interesting. You're right. But this one was just totally bizarre. Okay. From that, 2005, I mean, one of my favorite ones, I don't know if it's a favorite one, but it's a weird one, is Moonrise Kingdom. Hey, Edward, welcome back. You were on the show yesterday. Thank you for reminding Eric about Penn State, University of Pennsylvania and Penn State, and the Ivy League straightening us out. Thank you. Thank you so much, Edward. Thanks for coming by. 2012, Moonrise Kingdom. I don't know if we have any photos from that, but in Moonrise Kingdom, it's Bill Murray as a lawyer with Frances McDormand and Bruce Willis. This is one of the crazier ones where these two kids run away from summer camp, and Bruce Willis is the sheriff, and these are the parents. Bill Murray is the parent of the girl who stabbed somebody with a scissor, and her boyfriend is the other kid, and it's a runaway camp movie. I kind of like this one. I don't know. I like the kids, not these characters. The kids are great because it's a Boy Scout camp, and it's run by Ed Norton. All hail Ed Norton. He was very good in this movie as the and then Harvey Keitel is running the Eagle Scout version of the camp. There's a lot of good stuff to like in Moonrise. It's an obscure film. It's 2012. This is them apparently making an affair with Bruce Willis, by the way, and Murray is aware of it. And Frances McDormand keeps beating up Bill Murray, giving him black eyes. Everyone loves Moonrise. It's just a great little film. It's the black eye from Frances McDormand. I don't know about Murray's performance, but I like the performance of the kids. I really did. It was very, very, very well done. Yeah, it's charming. It's definitely, definitely charming. Anyway, so he goes from that. I wanted to cover a couple of other films. He does Monuments Men, 2014, which is a World War II movie with John Goodman and others. I think, what's his name, sucked him into, and George Clooney, recovering the art from the Nazis in World War II. He also does a thing where he plays FDR, which people forgot about. He starts doing period pieces again, Murray. Going back to The Razor's Edge, 1984, he begins to do these period pieces. And Rushmore might have been his first with him. Let's see when Rushmore, is Rushmore technically the first one? Because that is really my favorite one, is Rushmore. But I want to get back to Scrooge because I kind of give some short shrift. This is the Rushmore one. And I love this film. This one is fantastic. I love what's going on in here. He's having an affair with this is a private school where the kid doesn't really do very well. And Murray is an industrialist who takes a shining to this kid. And the kid is a complete fuck up who has a crush on his teacher. And then Murray has an affair with the teacher. Holy crap, does this happen? But let me just get back to Scrooge, and I'll come back to Wes Anderson, because Scrooged is a film that kind of goes underneath the radar. And it's got its moments in Scrooged where he plays this evil TV network. It's right up there with Charlie Brown Christmas. Yeah, I mean, there are some great moments in Scrooge. Okay. Just going a little bit backwards here for a second because I forgot about Scrooge. This is Robert Mitchum. Obviously, he's the head of the network above Bill Murray. Bill Murray plays this evil that wants to make really evil Christmas commercials. I just watched it the other day. It still holds up. And then it becomes Scrooge, where he's taken back to see his life. He gets visited by John Forsythe, who is completely mummified and was his boss. There's the mummified John Forsythe. It flashes back to a 1979 office party where Bill Murray is like the office overworker who won't party. Yeah, O'Donoghue might not have been happy, but he plays a little part in the end. So that's John Forsythe. They do flash back to a party, Christmas party, years before with John Forsythe is alive. But this is my favorite scene. This is him and John Murray, him and his brother John Murray walking down the street, encounter this street band playing right across the street from Rockefeller Center. And in that band is Paul Schaefer, David Sanborn, and an unusually low-profile trumpet player named Miles Davis. And it's just, they don't even, Bill Murray says, haven't you guys learned these songs? And he like flips $1 in the basket. And if you can look at the next photo, there's a photo after this with his brother walking down the street with him, and him and his brother are standing in front of a store. And across the street in that store is the custom shop where I used to work. And I worked there at the time when this before this was going on. But right across the street is the custom shop, and it's in the photo, which I kind of got a little misty-eyed about it. Mortimer Levitt. Not to be confused with Mortimer's, the restaurant named after Mortimer Levitt, who owned the custom shop, where John's brother and Murray's brother, Andy Murray, became the head chef. And Andy Murray became a very, very famous 4-star Michelin chef. And it's a side story. You could go down all the Murray brothers lanes, but getting back to Rushmore, just an which one? Oh yeah, there it is. If you look in the back, that's the custom shop back there, a place I used to work at Rockefeller Center. And the passport office is upstairs, so you could get your passport shirts. I don't know if we're going to have time to cover every single movie, but 2014, he does a film called St. Vincent. I don't know if anybody saw this film. He plays a depressed Vietnam vet. And Melissa McCarthy's in it, Naomi Watts. and the totally insane now Terrence Howard, who's gone completely batshit crazy. There's Terrence Howard, I guess when he was still normal, playing a mob figure, and Murray is into him and his friends for a lot of money for horse betting and gambling and everything else. And Melissa McCarthy moves in next door to Murray. Murray is a shut-in Vietnam vet, and she asks him to watch her kid after school, and disgruntlingly, he bonds with his kid. It's a very interesting movie. I highly recommend it. Get it on DVD if you can't find it. Very, very interesting little movie, not because of these other people, but because of Murray's portrayal of this Vietnam vet and his character change, which I really enjoyed. Now, that being said, there's all these other Wes Anderson. Oh, yeah, there it is. Naomi Watts. Yeah, they kind of hook up. Yeah, Carol Kane never gives a bad performance. Well, that's true. And she's in Scrooged. Yeah, that's interesting. He begins to do some really interesting things. That's kind of weird. What the fuck? It's kind of interesting. He begins to do a thing called New Worlds, the Cradle of Civilization in 2017, where he tours the world reading great American literature to audiences all around the globe. He got out of the draft. I don't know how he got out of the draft. That's a good question. Probably because of the drug bust. I think they wanted convicted people with 5 years probation in the Army at that point, but that's my guess. He then does this Bill Murray's 2015. You got to see this. It's a Murray Christmas. It was done for NBC. I think it's on HBO. I think you could find it. It's just a fantastic, fantastic Christmas special set, I think, in the Drake Hotel in a snowstorm in New York. And all of these friends of his show up and begin to interact with him. And that includes David Johansen, who was an old friend of mine who was in Scrooged, which is why I wanted to mention Scrooged as the cab driver. But Johansen will come back as the bartender in this very Murray Christmas special. It was only an hour. It was shot and directed by Sofia Coppola, and George Clooney's in it. Miley Cyrus, who sings her ass off. Maya Rudolph, who blew my freaking mind. She sounds like Aretha Franklin in this Christmas special. And I had no idea how great Miley Cyrus was either. I really didn't. I'm not a fan. I don't really watch her that much. But 2015, Miley Cyrus, Maya Rudolph, absolutely fantastic. The band is fantastic. There's some songs by Murray, for better or for worse. There's Miley Cyrus with Clooney showing up for this thing. If you could find this thing, it's absolutely delightful for Christmas. Again, they're all stuck in a snowed-in hotel in New York is the plot. And in fact, that's actually what did happen. And yeah, it's really, really well done. Musical director, of course, Paul Schaefer. Chris Rock shows up for a brief cameo. Wow. Maya Rudolph, by the way, is the wife of Paul Thomas Anderson, who's going to get Best Director this year for his film, which will get Best Picture. Not that I like it, but nevertheless, that's what's going to happen to Maya Rudolph. She'll be at the Oscars. Okay. Got that. The minor league teams, 2022. He's doing a film called Being Mortal, directed by Aziz Ansari, the comedian. I think he's Indian kid. It was his first directorial debut. They were wearing masks as per the union guidelines, and Murray began kissing one of the other actresses as a joke through the masks. She panicked. She filed a complaint with Human Resources, and they pulled the plug on the entire movie. They buried it in the press. Murray caused the collapse of the movie by his actions. Whether you think it's laughable or not is up to you. But Being Mortal was never released because of the grievances filed against. So there's all kinds of different things floating around. There is um, this is the New Worlds thing. Yeah, wow, wow. With a quartet, with a classical quartet. Very interesting, very ballsy, very bold. He then gets into it with Lucy Liu on Charlie's Angels, cursing her out and causing her immense dissatisfaction with her look and her life. That didn't go well. There's a lot of stuff out there on Murray. There's a lot of smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I just got to tell you something. And yet he's got a new Wes Anderson picture coming out called The Phoenician in 2025. I don't know if it's coming out this week or it's out this month. I haven't seen any press on it, but that's just me. It could be a lot of press out there for it, but it's the 10th film with him and Wes Anderson for people who are keeping score. Obviously, maybe the Life Aquatic with Stephen Zhu might be the weakest in 2004. He sings Maya's name at the end of a song. Minnie Riperton's her mother, yeah, obviously. But nevertheless, The Phoenician will be the 10th film with Wes Anderson. Thank you, Brian. Much obliged. I'd like to get to 10,000 subscribers somehow, if we can do that. As Frank the gross, unhealthy zookeeper in the line. I mean, these are, yeah, I don't have time to do 68 films, as you're well aware. So I'd like you in the comment section to put down the ones we left out that you really like, because I can't cover them all. It would take all day to do it. I'm trying to pick out the ones that I like and, the ones that are the most interesting to me personally. Like Quick Change, which had Kurtwood Smith in it, fighting with Bill Murray on the escape plane from the bank job, which I thought was pretty funny. And I just try to cover as many as I could here. The quartet appearance years back blew up for no reason. And the cameo in Zombieland, of course. I don't have time for that. But yeah, lobsters are loose. I'm sailing. Put in the comment section down below, if you see the show later, what your favorite Bill Murray moment was, what your underrated Bill Murray films are. They might not be underrated. They might be the two top ones. Tell me your favorite sketch on SNL of Bill Murray. It could be Nick the Lounge Singer. It could be a bunch of other stuff. But comment down below, and you could hit the like button if you want, the subscription button if you want, and some of the other buttons if you want. But this guy became a member. Welcome to the party. Striped and Scrooged are favorites. Yeah, that's not unusual. I just want to get a cross-section. I'm curious as to who likes what. The new Murray versus the old Murray, the dry Murray versus the comedy Murray, the dramatic Murray versus the funny Murray, the Lisa Lupner Murray versus the Lupner relationship. Put it down below. We could have some fun with this. I mean, when doing these deep dives, like I said, we're going to do Chevy Chase in about 2 weeks. And don't underestimate the career of Chevy Chase, because it is up there in many, many ways with some of the greats. Zombieland, it's not his film. I mean, I'm not talking about the films where he's a cameo. These are not Bill Murray films, keep in mind. There's a lot of films I can't cover because he's just doing cameos. He could do that all day if we just did a show on his cameos. But anyway, I think we covered quite a bit. It's been a couple of hours. I've got to get back and take all my medications to keep going. We'll be back next Wednesday with This Week in Showbiz History. You can like and subscribe at this point. You could buy some cookies or get the Biltong. I'm sure it'll make this family in Texas very happy. Can't wait to see Chase. Yeah, me too. I'm really starting to get into Chevy again. And like I said, he went to Bard College a little bit before I did. And as Steely Dan said, we're never going back to our old school. And that's it, my folks. My folks who are out there, that is all she wrote. We're leaving the air at this point of the operation. Great stream. Thank you. Thank you. The Phoenicians is a very physically gorgeous movie. Oh, somebody saw it already. Okay. Very physical. I need a laugh. Caddyshack. Absolutely. He's correct. He has no dick. Great scene. Even Ghostbusters 2 was watchable, right? Great stream, excellent. Tell your friends, see if we get some people to watch this thing. Like I said, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subs. That would be an incredible milestone for such a short period of time. Nobody knows this shit, and that's why I'm doing it, because I mean, me and my friends know this shit. But I'm sick as a dog, but the show must go on. And Get Low with Robert Duvall. That's an interesting one. Holy cow. Yeah, I got to take some more meds. But it's almost over. I'm going to Florida next week, and it'll be a little bit warmer there. Although it's like 75 here in LA, I can't really complain. But I'll be in West Palm for Christmas, as is the tradition in this family. And I will tell you the story of my new late aunt, who has apparently left me an inheritance. And you'll be hearing about this story later on. But yeah, Ghostbusters 3, not so sure. Meatballs, everyone's got a thing. Put it down below. Gotta go. Way to go. Good show. Glad you're here. And I'll see you next week.